First off, bill introductions. Ryan? Thank you. Brian, we just asked for the bill introduction. Okay. Yes. Yeah,
it is the COVID-19 government.
Wonderful, wonderful, Brian. Brian, committee, any questions on that? Seeing none, any objections? Seeing none, we'll make the bill request. Thank you very much, Ryan. Committee, next on our agenda is the hearing on the confirmation appointment for Robert Marks. Welcome to the committee. Senator Holland.
Thank you. I will have a number of questions for different folks regarding his nomination. We have the opportunity to ask questions of multiple parties during this hearing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Senator, and we do have a full agenda today, so, and we will not be working this confirmation today, but we will be working the confirmation of Virginia Powell before we finish our business today. So please continue.
How about that? Good morning again, Chairperson and Vice Ranking Member Holland and other members of the Assessment and Taxation Committee. I did prepare a statement. My name is Robin Marks, Robert E., and I'm here to introduce myself and provide you with my qualifications in support of the appointment to the Board of Tax Appeals. Okay, why am I interested in this position? First of all, real estate is a complex field, valuation. There are many property types, location variables, and other attributes that make property unique, and that the appointment, this appointment would demand a broad spectrum of experience. It would experience, training, judgment to give the taxpayers a fair shake. What's more, current economic crisis has made valuation even more difficult. I've had plenty of time to think this over, and I think it's time for me to step up and serve in this important public service. Okay, I was raised in Kansas. I've lived in Johnson County most of my life. I'll be 70 years old next month. I met my wife at KU 49 years ago. We've lived in the same house for 35 years. I started appraising with the firm Bliss Associates in Kansas City. That's over 45 years ago. I sold my share in that business a couple years ago, and I've stayed on as an employee. I have 2 children and 1 grandchild. My daughter and grandchild live in Lawrence. My granddaughter's 9 years old. I graduated from KU in 1973 with a degree in chemistry. I hold the state certification to appraise real property in Kansas. I have license number 383. I've been involved with it since the get-go. I hold a Kansas real estate broker's license. I hold the MAI and SRA designations from the Appraisal Institute. I've taught real estate appraisal and required continuing education in states from Alaska to Florida, Pennsylvania to Idaho, and a lot of states in between. I've served as a court-appointed appraiser in Johnson County for several judges in eminent domain. KDOT, Department of Transportation, hired me to appraise Security Benefit Life Building, now the Eisenhower Building, before they bought it. Property Valuation Division, PVD, hired me to review county appraisals, county valuations in Wyandotte County. The United States Department of Justice, DOJ, has hired me to appraise a rails to trails project. The Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, has hired me to review a conservation easement. Missouri Attorney General's office, that is, hired me to review a Missouri licensed appraiser for conformance with standards. I'm on the Standards and Professional Appraisal Review Committee. I've testified as an expert witness in state and federal courts. And I think more importantly, I think I've earned the respect of my peers in this business, locally and nationally, because Kansas has drawn some attention about taxation. I've done a lot of mortgage lending appraisals for federally insured financial institutions, for corporations, for individuals, for city right-of-way capital improvement projects, for county assessments, and for just about every other reason you can imagine: divorce, estates, trusts, partnerships, partition suits. I mean, the whole gamut. I've appraised simple to complex properties, from land to houses to large commercial and industrial buildings. And here are a few of the ones that I think are notable. The West Ridge Mall in Topeka, Nebraska Furniture Mart, Kansas City. The Legends Outlets. It's the largest, I think, tax revenue generator, or one of the top 10 in the state. Kansas Star and Boot Hill Casinos, Coffeyville Refinery, Hospira in McPherson, Kansas, feedlot, Bartlett Grains, cattle feedlot out in western Kansas, Haskell County, and the former EPA headquarters building, EPA Region 7, that's in Wyandotte County. And no sooner do I think I've seen just about everything, I was asked to appraise a missile silo, a converted missile silo about 40 miles west of here. Now, I know there's this dark store theory, debate, whatever you want to call it. I understand the issues. I'm not confused at all about it. I'm not against the theory. Now, I've used it recently, and I think in one of the materials you got is a case, the Best Buy in Wyandotte County. It was a dark store. I made a discount for the issues related to that dark store. Now, BOTA ruled on that last January and accepted my number 100%. Okay, so I just want to emphasize that was a dark store. Senator Alley, good morning. I've appraised many big box retail stores for both counties, assessors or appraisers, and store owners. So I'm on both sides. It's the same issue no matter who I work for. I'm an independent. So state law requires in our statutes that I value fee simple estate for real estate tax purposes and eminent domain. It's the same fee simple interest. It's well defined, okay? There's nothing in the statutes that I'm aware of that says, oh, assume that it's dark. That's not the law. So, I want to close with some facts. I've never been charged with a violation of USPAP at the Kansas Real Estate Appraisal Board, okay? I trust that I'm not disqualified because I'm overqualified. If I will follow the law, if I'm appointed to this board, I'll be a workhorse. At getting through, there's a backlog at BOTA. I understand that. And I am up for the challenge. It will be my honor of my life to be entrusted with the duties at the Board of Tax Appeals. I appreciate your consideration and will gladly answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Committee questions? Senator Holland.
I need your guidance on this, Madam Chair. I have some questions for the nominee, but I really do have some questions for lobbyist Stafford of the chamber, because I think some of the materials he released, I'd like to dive into deeper, because I think they kind of get to the crux.
Senator, we are on a time crunch. Do you have any questions for the conferee?
Sure, I'll start with him, and then I would like to ask Mr. Stafford afterwards.
We will go in order.
Okay.
Conferee's before us.
Very good. Thank you for being here today, Mr. Marks. I appreciate it. I want to basically, you had responded to, I assume, this letter that the chamber submitted. This was back on April 20th, 2020, to, at that time, Senate Majority Leader Denning on the chair of Senate Oversight, Confirmation Oversight. You actually had a response to that letter that the chamber sent to Mr. Denning when they expressed concerns about your background. Is that something that you gave us?
It should be in the packet, yes, sir.
Can you specifically speak to those points? Once again, your rebuttal on your Bliss letter of April 21st, 2020.
Well, I think the opposition states that I have an issues and a client conflict, and I totally reject that argument because, and I'm glad you all know that there's two sides to every story, okay? So it says, oh yeah, I praised some big box stores for Johnson County. True, one time in 10 years. But they failed to mention that I did big box stores for Lowe's. Interestingly, Lowe's settled based on my number with the county. So it sounds to me like I'm kind of in the middle, and a reasonable appraisal is good to go. So I don't feel like that's conflicted me out. I've worked for many property owners and taxed more for property owners than for the assessors. All right? And it said I'm trying to make it a law. I'm not a lawyer. I don't make the law, but I did bring the rule books. This is what I adhere to. This is the first edition of the USPAP, Uniform Standards, and this is the current edition. And by law, I have to follow these books. And nowhere in these books it says, oh, fee simple means it's vacant. It has to be made vacant. That argument is flawed. Now, I'm not trying to make law. The Walmart case is up on appeal. And if our courts say, you know, we need to value every store, and it's not going to be just big box retail, it's going to be every office building, every shopping center, every apartment building. If we're going to do all these dark, okay, show me the law. It's on appeal. I will follow that law. I promise you that. I'm used to pressure. I'm immune to it. At my age, there's one advantage of being about 70. You don't, I think you know where you are. You've got your personal strength to be what do it right. So I'm not trying to make law, but I can only tell you this for sure. There's nothing in the statutes that states that I have to assume that the property is vacant. That's a hypothetical. Why assume something that's not true? Unless that is the label, the dark store. Again, I'll reiterate, on that Best Buy, I valued a dark store, and the discounts are there. And Boda took my number 100%. Thanks.
Any other questions? I've got a few. You spoke about the Coffeyville refinery, that you did the assessment on that. If I remember properly, there were major lawsuits over that assessment and valuation coming off the books, and they ended up hiring somebody out of state. How were you involved with that?
Well, because most of the refinery was determined to be equipment that was not taxable based upon some ruling that it was exempt. that then it got down to the land and the structural buildings that were on the property. So, you know, again, it's a carve out. I had to carve out the equipment from that, what I call the going concern, to find out the underlying value of the taxable, tangible, real property.
Okay, I have, I'll be quite candid with you. You testified in front of this committee a couple years ago. I don't know if you remember or not.
I was here, but I didn't get to testify. I put a letter into the record.
You did put a letter in, and that written testimony then, I'll be more accurate on that. But you did have a position on the dark store theories, and my question to you is, we have people legislating from the bench in Kansas, which is actually nationwide an issue for me. And my concern is that you may take that upon yourself to legislate from the bench and not follow the letter of the law. How would you address that?
Well, there's been a couple cases that I'm aware of that offer some guidance. There's a Target case in Sedgwick. There is, which dealt with the county not having an appraisal, so they didn't have anything to stand on. That's not that much help. And then there's the Preeb case on Wanamaker that deals with sale leasebacks. I'm aware of that. You know, I'm aware of my Penny's big box retail appraisal in Wyandotte County was upheld at Boda. And I'm also aware that, again, that it's up at the Court of Appeals. So there's nothing in the law that says for me to make that hypothetical assumption. But if the courts say to do so, I am absolutely prepared to take that approach.
So let me ask you then, if you have worked in Johnson County?
Yes.
Wyandotte County?
Yes.
Considerably, and it sounds like you're starting in Shawnee County somewhat. I've heard you have a new.
Shawnee, Douglas, Sedgwick, Sumner County.
So would you recuse yourself from the cases that are in those counties, especially Johnson and Wyandotte?
Not necessarily. It would depend if I have a conflict of interest.
How would you define your conflict of interest?
I would use the judicial rules about I think it's 5 years. It's going to be a judgeship, and so I'll follow the rules on that.
And how many of your cases were in Johnson County and Wyandotte County? Do you know?
Would you,
Appraisals?
over what time frame?
The last 5 years.
Well, I did one case in Johnson County, but it had 5 stores. And that was 2 years ago. And there were 3 Lowe's stores. So I did 8 big box stores total in Johnson County in 19. 5 for the county and 3 for the property owner. Wyandotte, more than that. In the last 5 years, maybe 5. Maybe somewhere between 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 at the most. 1 or 2 a year.
Committee, any other questions for the conferee? Senator Alley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize for being late this morning. You know, Johnson County and our large metropolitan areas have taken the brunt of the dark store theory, and the media has responded with that and put that in the papers. But my concern more is not with that, but downtown, small town America. And you have vacant stores there that people can't afford to pay their taxes on. How would you address that?
If the store is vacant, there's a problem. Problem properties tend to have lower values. To take the other side of that, if it's occupied, it's been my experience that people pay more for property that's already stabilized, operational, up and running. So if I'm comparing a dark property to one that's occupied, It's been my observation that investors pay more for the ones that are up and running. But if the court says, oh, no, assume that everybody's dark, that's fine. I'll follow the law.
The other question to that is that, and I'm talking about small town America, where you normally have a storefront on the ground floor, and they had some vacant residential area on the top floor, and those are being appraised so people can't afford to pay their taxes. And so all these stores were vacant on the second floor because nobody can live up there because of safety violations, second access and such a thing. But we can't afford, we being the property owners, can't afford to remodel those and bring those up, because if we do, taxes will go up. So there's an issue that we have to deal with. How would you address that?
I would go right to the market, because my job, and it's been my job for 46 years, is to estimate fair market value. And there's three methods: cost, sales or comp sales, and income cap. So if the appraiser takes the effort and goes to the market, finds what's been traded, what the motivation has been, it's a supply and demand issue. Sometimes you got to do a lot of homework. The market speaks for itself. So, I mean, if you can't, those properties will be sold if people can't hang in there to new capital. It's our system.
My fear is that they won't be sold, they'll be set and become vacant. And that's what we have in a lot of our small towns, at least in my district. Downtown looks like vacant properties, every other building. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Committee, any other questions? Senator Holland.
One more quick one for him, and then I do have some questions, Mr. Stafford. Talk to me about the life cycle of financing, say, with these typical big boxes. When we have these big disputes, are these things typically already on the tax rolls, or are we talking about primarily a situation where these types of box store developments, these box stores, have they typically been given TIFs or some sort of financing with the local units? And then are we talking about now all of a sudden the economic development incentives go away? And I'm just trying to get an understanding of it. Are these things already on the tax rolls being assessed through the normal means? Are we talking about basically these things are coming off some sort of TIF or something, and now it's basically time for the developer, the company, to pay the bill once those incentives have gone away? Are we talking about situations where maybe that developer or that company may be trying to sell that property, and so from their perspective, they may want to have a lower property tax valuation to sell that, to invest in other things? Can you comment on that at all?
Sure. That's an interesting question. First of all, in a TIF, I've had some property owners and even assessors say, look, it's so low, we don't have enough revenue to pay back the TIF revenue bonds. It's unusual. Most retail is not with public incentives, although there's many redevelopments. And the Star bonds out at the Legends, Village West, that's a big incentive. I hope I answered your question. It's the whole range. You don't see IRBs. You don't see IRBs in retail.
Thank you. Committee, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Marks.
Thank you.
Yes, is there anybody that would like to testify for or against? Committee, I draw your attention, we do have some written testimony. It is extremely unique, but I will ask if Mr. Stafford would be willing to answer some questions by the ranking. This is an important position, and we want to make sure that we have the facts and the information before us before we make this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to. Good morning, Senator.
Morning. Thanks for being here.
Sure.
And thank you, Madam Chair. So First of all, Mr. Stafford, just an initial question. On your letter to Senator Denning on April 20th, I'm kind of curious, do you have, at that time you sent him that letter, do you actually have members of the chamber that have open cases before BOTA?
Yeah, I have members who have cases before BOTA that Johnson County used Mr. Marks's numbers on the appraisal, but BOTA rejected those numbers. So his numbers proved to be wrong in the case that's going before the Supreme Court. So.
Okay, well, my question is that you never really specifically revealed to Mr. Chairman Denning at the time, the majority leader, that you actually have members who have open cases before the court, did you?
No, I think it doesn't matter. I think we're doing what we can do to represent our membership, and at the end of the day, I serve on the District Court Nominating Commission, Senator, for the 3rd District here in Shawnee County, so we select district judges. And there is a district judge who is serving in an interim capacity who should have recused herself from a case that was dealing with a DUI for a partner from a law firm where she worked. She did not recuse herself and ended up dropping the charges. She got reprimanded because there was a conflict of interest because she previously represented that law firm. There is no difference in the standard, and what we brought up in our letter is the fact that Mr. Marks worked for or on behalf, whether it's Lowe's or Johnson County or Wyandotte County, was paid to represent them, and that is a direct conflict of interest according to Kansas statute, which I sent in a follow-up email 2 days ago. He should recuse himself, and I think his answer he just gave this morning shows that he has no intention to recuse himself. He feels justified in representing those interests, and he should not, according to Kansas law. That is our point. Whether I'm disclosing in our letter that we have members or not, there is a conflict of interest, and that is the point that we're driving home, Senator.
Well, the point I'm trying to drive home here is that I think you're conflicted yourself because in your letter to Mr. Denning, you actually do not state that you have clients specifically that have open courts before BOTA.
I'm not asking
feel
you
you
to
have-
judge, Senator.
Okay,
Senator,
then
I'm going to, he did answer your question, and so let's move on. We
Okay, so
are
my
on
next-
a time constraint this morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate your patience with me. Okay, and I'm just another quick question. So did you ever get the Comfrey's letter back that he sent to Denning?
No.
Did you ever see that? Okay, super. Who is Linda Terrell?
She's a property tax attorney who represents property taxpayers on appeals.
Okay, and she then obviously would be part of the litigation team on behalf of your members, correct?
Some of them.
Okay, so basically, she in fact, she would have issues or open cases before BOTA today currently, correct?
I don't know if she does or not. I know she was involved in the Johnson County case that dealt with Walmart, that Walmart was victorious before BOTA, and Johnson County has appealed to the Supreme Court.
Okay, and then I'm curious who is Mr. David Lenhoff? Do you know who he is?
No.
Okay. So just for the group, when Mr. Stafford put out the letter from Mr. Lenhoff, basically, I don't know, basically trying to make some sort of assertions about the professionalism of Mr. Marks's comments. I do have something that I want to share. And I'm surprised Mr. Stafford doesn't remember him because there was an article.
I know of a
Senator, we are
response
on
to
the
some
appointment of
testimony.
this
I don't know him. I don't know
The point
what
I'm
he
trying to
does.
make, Madam Chair, is that basically we have a lobbyist who is lobbying accusations at the conferee, and he is inherently conflicted. Whether it's he brings forth a letter by Ms. Terrell, who basically has somebody, and by the way, Lenhoff actually, I guess he was an expert witness with Terrell, actually with one of your cases, I think it was the Target thing in Johnson County. That to me is very conflicting. The other point I want to make here, Madam Chair, and by the way, I have the copy in case you all want to see this. Then I want to turn to the Appraisal Institute letter. This was March 31st, 2020. Who is the Appraisal Institute that you decided to put in your thing that would besmirch Mr. Marks's reputation, professional work? Do you know who they are?
Is that to me?
Yeah.
The Appraisal Institute?
Mr.
I have to research, I'm sorry.
Stafford, just a second. That is not in my packet. I don't know where that information came from. It's not in my packet. Is it in anybody else's packet?
It's what Eric emailed to all of
What
us.
Eric Beal this week.
So what we will do then is, you don't have any other questions for Mr. Marks, is that correct, Senator?
Well, I kind
So
of,
what we're going to do is, we're going to extend the packet. We're going to make sure that all those copies get included in the packet.
Okay.
We are going to get Mr. Marks's written testimony, and we are going to extend this hearing.
Madam Chair, for the record, I'd like to share with the committee a response of the IAAO to the comments, I believe of the Appraisal Institute, when they sent the letter to President Rasmussen. I want to share that with the committee as well, too. So
You would wait. We are going to extend this hearing another day.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So I will change the schedule. It will probably be tomorrow or Thursday, committee. Today's Tuesday, and I will ask Michael to add to the packet so we can get all the information we need in order to make a confident decision going forward, committee. Are there any other comments or questions on this hearing? I have less than a minute. Please, you will have time to speak again another day.
I was hired by the county, and they got out of their lane. They about doubled them. And I told the county they're too high. So I told my client they're too high, okay? And the final ruling was between my number and the county's number before the appeal, okay? I valued it less than what my client.
It's fine. We will come back to this at another time.
Thank you.
So I'm going to suspend the hearing on Robert Mark. And I am going to open the hearing on Senate Bill 71. Amelia, would you give us a brief overview?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Senate Bill number 71 establishes the Kansas income tax and privilege tax credit in an amount equal to 50% of contributions made during the taxable year to the Eisenhower Foundation for tax years 2021 through 2025. The annual amount of the credit is limited to $25,000 for a resident individual income tax taxpayer and $50,000 for a corporate income tax or privilege tax taxpayer. The aggregate amount of tax credits claimed shall not exceed $350,000 for any fiscal year, and the credit is non-refundable and cannot be carried over. The bill would take effect from and after publication in the statute book, and this may look familiar to some of you. Last session, there was a bill, Senate Bill number 140, as amended by the Senate Committee of the Whole. This bill is similar to that. It passed the Senate 40-0. The difference between Senate Bill 140 and the current bill before you, Senate Bill 71, are the tax years. It was moved forward to 2021 through 2025 for this bill. And I would be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Amelia. Committee, any questions on this? Seeing none, we'll call our first conferee. Mary Jean Eisenhower? Is she? Okay. She's not here today? Or is she online?
Unfortunately, she felt ill this morning and she wasn't
Oh,
able
I'm
to make
sorry.
it.
Please give her our best wishes.
Absolutely, that's why I'm here, so.
Oh, it's great to see you, Merrill. You can
Absolutely.
kick us off.
Absolutely, happy to do that. First of all, thank you so much for having us here and seeing this bill. This bill is tremendously impactful. I have Meredith with us today, who will be testifying and talking more in detail of it. But I can't thank Senator Clays enough for reintroducing this bill, so thank you very much for that. And, you know, Senator Tyson, you've always been a big supporter of it, so thank you all. It's good to see you, sir. It's been a while. So thank you all so much for seeing us and hearing us again. I can tell you that this bill, the foundation, does so much great work in the state of Kansas, not just only having a wonderful facility that was designed and built where people can learn about President Eisenhower and actually Citizen Eisenhower as well, but it also has an educational component that touches most of our kids at some points in times in the state of Kansas, and that is extremely important to remember as well. So with that, I will actually yield, and thank you very much for having me today.
For the record, Merrill, your title and your relationship.
Oh, sorry. My title is CEO of People to People International, and my relationship is I am the great-grandson of President Dwight David Eisenhower. Thank you.
Committee, welcome Meredith.
Thank you for having me today. Again, Mary Jean is watching via WebEx, so hi, Mary. I just want to make a couple of points beyond what Meryl had said. There's written testimony that was submitted last week, and so I hope you all have an opportunity to look at that. It talks about the recent renovation that we completed, as well as how our colleagues at the Truman Library in Missouri are receiving support from the state of Missouri. The only two other points I wanted to make is, as was alluded to earlier, last year on March 5th of 2020, the Senate passed this bill unanimously. The second point that I wanted to make is that if this is passed, the burden of issuing those tax credits is on the foundation. So it's up to us to be able to disperse them throughout the year. So it's not a guarantee that all of them will be distributed each year. And with that, I'll yield to you for questions.
Thank you, Meredith. Committee, any questions? Maybe third time's a charm?
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah, I hope so too.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to testify for Senate Bill 71? Any neutral testimony? Any opponents to the bill? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 71. Well, committee, I wish I wouldn't have cut those guys off. I didn't realize that hearing was going to go so quick. We will reschedule them. Thursday I had left for working bills, so I will take a look at the schedule and we'll continue either Wednesday or Thursday. Committee, we do have a presentation scheduled. We will begin the presentation with Eddie Penner, and we'll pick this up another day too. And Eddie, I'm going to thank you up front. I know you put a lot of time and effort into this, and it is greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you for those kind words, Senator. And you should have in a folder there, we worked with Anthony and Pam really quickly right before the meeting. I brought copies of, I have my slides in front of you that I'm going to try to share screen for the people who might be observing online's benefit here really quickly. And then you should have 3 attachments to those also that I hope will be helpful. The attachments are a blue packet that is tax credit information that this is Department of Revenue information that I've kind of chopped up and rearranged to hopefully be easy for you to look at, but the full exact information from them I can also provide to you. A green packet that is PVD information that I'll speak about in this presentation. I'm not sure I'll get to it today. Maybe whenever I come back to present this. And then also a larger packet that is the most recent tax expenditure report from the Department of Revenue. And so, so I'm just kind of discussing Kansas tax programs, and my understanding is I visited with the chair about this presentation is, you know, you've worked on a handful of tax programs already, but there are a number of new members to the committee or new to the tax committee's members, and so the chair thought it might be helpful to get you a better feel for all of what Kansas has as far as tax programs. I wish I could tell you that this is going to be all of what Kansas has. However, that would take almost the entire session. I would be up in front of you every day for the session to walk through all of what Kansas has. So I'll try to get as close to comprehensive as possible, and certainly enough information to where you can hopefully ask questions about the full comprehensive set. And by all means, interrupt me at any point if you do have questions or not.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just wanted to, there's over 4,000 taxing entities in the state of Kansas, and that's why the comment you made that it would take every day.
Well, there's that many taxing entities, and then also, and that's before you get to the question of the nuance of all of the actual taxes themselves. I was on the phone with Roger Ham from PVD before coming up here this morning to make sure that I said things exactly correctly before you, and one of the things that we visited about was the fact that we have an idea of all of the, for property tax purposes, the exempt real estate in the state of Kansas. But many of the personal property tax exemptions, for instance, don't require the property be listed at all, which of course makes sense from the government's perspective and the taxpayer's perspective, just for simplicity. But accordingly, it's really tough to know what is out there because of that aspect of them. And so the next page on this is Two of these are links in your packet, and so the digital version that you'll get, you can actually just click on those and go to the pages for them. But these are kind of really important documents for understanding the tax programs within Kansas. The other two just aren't available online, and so they are either provided or can be provided. But the Kansas Department of Revenue has their annual report, which includes a lot of relevant information for things like this, as well as almost necessary background information for this. The Kansas Department of Revenue has their annual tax expenditure report, which is something that I'll talk about a lot. And then there are two other key documents. PVD has their own annual report in addition to the Department of Revenue's larger annual report. And then the Department of Revenue annually prepares information. I don't know that its official title is tax credits report. Kathleen might need to correct me on that, but it's what it's always been referred to as far as I'm aware. And that is a summary version of that is what is in the blue attachment that I have for you. And so I just wanted to highlight all of those documents before we get into this. And so I'm going to talk about programs in income tax, sales tax, and property tax throughout this presentation. But the first program that I was going to highlight is what's called the PEAK program, or is sometimes is more fully known as the Promoting Employment Across Kansas program. This is an income tax program, but it's actually not an easy to see income tax program in some ways, because it isn't a deduction, it isn't a credit, it isn't an exemption. What it actually is an economic development program that the legislature has created that allows qualified employers to actually retain up to 95% of the withholding tax for their employees, withholding tax, of course, being a subset of the larger state income tax. One of the important things to know about this program is that it is not what might be described as generally applicable. It is a program that requires an agreement to be in place between the company and the Department of Commerce. And then, of course, that withholding, it might be up to 95%, and that the range of these agreements, depending upon the exact specifications of what the business is doing, might be for anywhere from 5 to 10 years. And this program may be used for kind of business location into Kansas, business relocation into Kansas. Location, of course, might be just described as a new business, kind of jobs springing up out of nowhere. Relocation is somewhat apparent, moving to Kansas. And then expansion. At one point in time, this program was allowed to be used for business for retention of jobs, but that was sunset in 2018 by the legislature, and so there's no more kind of retention component of this program. And the other thing that's important to note is that the business expansion aspect of this program is capped. There's a hard dollar limit on an annual basis for the aggregate amount of business expansion dollars that can be associated with this program. That cap doesn't exist for kind of the business location or creation or business or job relocation element of the program. And so we have a cap for a portion of this program, but the rest of it doesn't. I did include in this slide, just thought it might be helpful, that there were about $47 to $49 million in the two most recent fiscal years in this program. I can provide the dollar amount associated with this program for the committee if that's of interest for previous years as well. But I don't happen to have those right in front of me. And I think I see a question maybe.
You do. And yes, I would like those, because the original cap on this was $6 million, and it was $6 million capped. And we had a Secretary of Commerce that was interpreting it as $6 million a year, and it kept growing. And my concern here is it's still continuing to grow, even with the cap that the legislature put on it. So we need to take a close look at this. I don't think most legislators are aware of even this program or how it is intended to work and how it is actually being implemented. Senator Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I really appreciate your comments on PEAK and some of these things. And I want to go back to, and I guess this is a question for Eddie, but really more for members of the committee. I've been here 19 years, maybe that's too long, I don't know. But I think with basically any tax policies, particularly these economic development incentives, though, it's not like you have all the information you need to really, to figure out if they're working out right. But I think the other point is that, whether we are rural legislators or suburban legislators or urban, I think one of the things that would really help us understand how these programs were used. Eddie, has anybody ever talked to you about maybe like a regional fiscal note?
I don't know that anybody's ever talked to me directly about that. I've certainly heard conversations about that, and we've tried to look at
I mean, for example, like, we
reports.
look at something like Peak, it's like, where's it being used? You know, what industries are using it? And I just wonder, Madam Chair, that at some point, if we have maybe like some enhanced analytics as far as breaking down either by region of the state or maybe by like industry or stakeholder, if that would be helpful.
Senator, let's ask Eddie for both of those breakdowns.
Yeah, I'll work with the Departments of Commerce and Revenue to try to nail that down. In the peak annual report, it does list every single company that has a peak agreement in place with the state. And so it seems like that ought to be something that we can put together as kind of an extrapolation.
And once again, though, it's not necessarily to poke holes in any particular program. I think it would just give us legislators, and I think quite honestly, Madam Chair, couldn't you do with the budget too? I mean, when you look at base our expenditures, where are those expenditures going in the regions, or what stakeholder groups are using those? I just think it would provide a whole much level better detail to make both tax and budgeting policy decisions, you know, going forward. So thank you, Madam Chair, for your indulgence.
No, thank you. And Eddie, I would add to that, you said there's two aspects to the program. I would like the financial breakdown on those aspects.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fractions of it.
Senator Alley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you define region?
Could I define region?
Well, I think Senator Holland's request is very valid, but do we need to define region for you, perhaps?
Well, I believe that this data is probably available on a county-by-county basis. Now, if you want me combining counties into northeast, southeast, other fractions of the state,
County by county.
I was going to say, if you wanted more distinction, then I would ask for guidance on that, but county by county is what I believe is available.
Thank you. Senator Stephan.
Madam Chair, could we break this down into business sector that's using them as well?
I imagine so by NAICS code would be my expectation, just because there are NAICS code aspects and limitations to these programs. So I imagine to a certain extent that would be possible.
So Eddie, your wonderful presentation is going to result in more.
and I'm only on slide 4 of 13, and the first 2 of those slides were introductory. But,
I think we need this, though.
Right, yeah.
Not just as a tax committee, but as a legislative body. This information needs to be available to all of us. So thank you.
All right, if there's no more questions on this particular slide, I'm sure the next slide, which is oriented around the HPIP program, may generate comparable questions, if nothing else. HPIP is a little different than PEAK in the sense that HPIP is generally applicable, and so if a company is qualified for HPIP, they get it. Unlike PEAK, where you may have a company doing exactly what the PEAK program is designed to do, but because they haven't entered into an agreement with the Department of Commerce in advance of that, then they wouldn't be a PEAK beneficiary. But the HPIP program is generally applicable. It's a program that does require companies to pay above average wages for both their kind of field of work and also for their geography, and invest in their employees' training. And it provides a 10% income tax credit for capital investment. It offers a sales tax exemption for that kind of original construction of the capital investment. And then it also involves a training tax credit, which can be worth up to $50,000 under the program. This program, as you can see there, kind of that bottom line in tax year 18, which unfortunately, just the realities of these programs is that getting clear data on them, there's always a necessary lag. It's just kind of unavoidable, unfortunately. There was $74.1 million of HPIP credits, and the prior year there was $41.2 million. So the kind of variance of this program has some variance from year to year. Unlike Peak, which tends to be somewhat steady, but as the chair noted, it has grown over time, but it's not all over zigzagging. HPIP does have somewhat of a zigzag. One of the reasons for that is that the HPIP credits can be carried forward. Off the top of my head, I don't remember if it's 16 or 17 years, but it's one of those two. And you've seen legislation in the past that would have changed that carry forward time frame. And so because of that carry forward kind of nature of the program, the utilization of these credits in any given year does vary quite a bit. And so might be a good chance here to pause for kind of HPIP questions. I imagine they might be similar to the PEAK questions, though.
Thank you. Committee questions, Senator Holland.
The only thing that kind of bothered me with HPIP, because I remember we did this several years ago, is we raised the minimum threshold for HPIP in certain counties. And being in Douglas, we got lumped into the big boy group. And we do have a lot of rural, though, in Douglas, towards Franklin and places like that. And I guess just, have you ever gotten any feedback on, does that still make sense? I mean, why we have, in essence, the two-tiered? I mean, it seems to me basically that should be a program that should be at the lower threshold so everybody across the state can participate. And I just, was there any, anyway, if you have any research or knowledge on why there was the higher threshold for that, and please understand, I understand if we're talking about, we don't want to squeeze out our rural counties from participating in that program. But if we get some background on that, that's always
I'll provide what I can find. And then I'll also follow up with the Department of Commerce to see if they've gotten feedback on that regarding, are there companies, businesses that want to take advantage of the HPIP program but are simply unable to because they kind of fall in a weird sliver of that geography as far as being defined as being in a metropolitan area, even if they are kind of more rural in nature.
Senator Baumgartner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Eddie, you always provide us with excellent work. Thank you. My question has to do with HPIP. You indicate that 74.1 million in tax year 2018, and that varies. But on the very next slide, it shows that HPIP made up almost 50%, just shy of 50% of the total tax. Is that consistent? So that total, approximate total claim, is HPIP the driver of that? Are we to think that in 2017, it was significantly lower overall?
I actually would expect that it probably was lower overall in 2017. I will follow up on exactly that answer, though, if that's... because I just don't have it in front of me. The blue packet that you have gets into a little bit more of this detail, and so I'll circle back around to that on the next slide if that's all right.
Thank you.
I think we will make the request on HPIP that we made on e-golf.
Multiple years and the geography aspect of it, of course.
Senator Alley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the page where you're just talking about, it says that these credits may be refundable, transferable, and allowed to carry forward or a single year. Can they be sold?
Are you referring to the next?
I'm not referring to the next slide. One that says income tax.
Okay, all right. In that case, I'm just going to jump ahead to that slide and start answering these questions one by one, because it sounds like maybe the HPIP questions are the peak questions, and so we'll move forward. So that transferable, that by and large means sold. Yeah, unless you just have a very generous taxpayer, they're not giving those credits away. And I say credits, I don't necessarily. This varies from credit to credit, what they're transferable, refundable, carried forward single year. And that information is actually provided on the blue attachment. There are columns there that speak to the refundability or non-refundability of the credits, the carry forward period.
Refundable? I don't know that the committee understands that.
Okay, I'll answer it. I know that we're tight on time, so it might be the case that when I come back, this is just where I need to pick up, but to answer that question specifically, refundable credit means that if the amount of the credit exceeds your entire Kansas income tax liability, the state pays you the difference. That's the peanut of it.
That's the point I wanted to make. Thank you.
Right. Back on Senator Baumgartner's question, you can see on this page, one of the main change that I have made to this document is that I have the Department of Revenue sorts these alphabetically, typically, which makes, of course, sense from their perspective. I thought it might be more beneficial for you to see them. They are sorted by the amount of tax credit allowed here. And so you can see that the bulk of Kansas's tax credits, at least in this year, and this tends to be pretty close year to year. Okay. All right. Not a problem with me.
Committee, we will pick this up again. There's too much great information And I know Amy from the Department of Revenue is going to help us out, too. So committee, what are your wishes on Virginia Powell? She was our conferee last Thursday for the Board of Tax Appeals. Senator Holland.
Thank you, Mayor Chairman. I move her nomination out favorable for passage or recommendation, where you phrase it.
Okay, and if you would allow us some flexibility on that motion so that we get the governor's appointment language included also?
Sure.
Okay. It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved by Senator Holland, seconded by Senator Corson to move out favorably. Committee, I do have some concern, and it sounds like other committee members may too. Any discussion on the motion? Senator Alley.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't have any discussion on the motion per se, but I do have some concern about the amount of training that she would have to bring her up to speed.
That was my concern. I mean, I think she will be an excellent candidate, but yes, we are in a situation with the Board of Tax Appeals that they are behind, and I do have a bill introduction I'll be making to help address some of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Senator Baumgartner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did see that listing. It is full-time school for a couple months, but there is testing required. Do we know, did we get any feedback? It's one thing to take a test, it's another thing to pass a test.
Senator, they only have to take the test. There is no requirement on the qualification on passing the test. They only have to take the test. I did confirm that this weekend.
That would be a concern for me, in the context that pretty much anything in the professional world, you have to pass national boards, you have to pass all kinds of tests to be certified, licensed, to graduate. So coming from a background of education and academics, it is a non-starter for me that there is not a requirement to pass the test.
So committee, the committee has two options here. We can pass out, as the motion was, favorably, or if that motion fails, then a motion will be made to pass out unfavorably. But that is our position. We have to pass it one way or the other with a confirmation. Any other discussion on the motion? Senator Steffen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question. Excuse me. I was looking at this. I thought maybe y'all could help me clarify it. That the Kansas statutes mandate for this Board of Appeals that one of the members has a CPA background. Is it common that we see people come through that have the CPA background that also have the appraisal background?
You know, that's an excellent question, Senator. I think most of us are new to the Board of Tax Appeals appointments. Maybe Senator Holland is the only one that's been around for these with 20 years, almost 20 years under his belt. Senator Holland.
And Madam Chair, I guess this is why I'm going to come down favorable of her for the CPA. I mean, when you look at her background, I mean, she's been a CPA licensed forever. And quite honestly, she also not only worked for firms, I mean, she had a firm. I think one of the problems we have in Boda is we don't have a good sense of customer service. And I was real excited about her background because she's got that. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if she's CPA licensed and she has never been cited, I mean, she's got the brain power to do this job. I'm not really sure you're going to ever find the perfect CPA that has all the requisite things. And, you know, I think that group kind of works as a team, and that's why they specify the different specialties. I think she's got CPA in spades. That's why I want to support her. Thank you.
Thank you, committee. And my concern is just what the board is facing right now. If this was a different time, but I understand your comments. And is there any other comments or discussion on the conference? Senator Alley.
Madam Chair, with the comments that Senator Baumgartner made about the passing the test, could we pass out favorably with that requirement?
I don't know. I would have to check on that. So let's pass it out and then we can check it on the floor. But what we can do is I'm going to have a BOTA bill and we can include that in part of the bill, that they not only take the test, but they actually have to pass the test. So we can deal with that in another time. Yeah.
Self-second his motion.
Okay. So Senator Koshin. We do not know, and I was surprised to hear that they didn't have to pass it, they just have to take it. Senator Kluse.
Having real estate background and just kind of reviewing where she's at, seems pretty competent that she could handle that.
Thank you, Senator. Any other comments, discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Would you like to be recorded? Okay. Senator, it was moved by Senator Holland, seconded by Senator Corson. The motion passes. Senator Baumgardner would like to be recorded as opposed. Any other business brought before the committee? Thank you, guys. I know we've shoved a lot into 50 minutes, but thank you, committee, for your hard work, and I will make announcements to the adjustment on the schedule.